Namaste and good morning to all of you. Let's start our Wednesday class with some prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Om Bhava Swaha, Tatsavitra Varenayam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Diyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Asto Ma Satgamya, Tamso Ma Jyotirgamya, Mrityorma Amritam Gamya. Om Sena Bhavtu, Sena Bhunaktu, Saviryam Karvavahi, Tejasvi Navadhitamastu, Ma Vidvishavahi. Om Shanti 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 Om. We talk about mind quite often because mind is the one which can take us towards the heavenly abode, towards moksha also, and mind can take us downward also. Even while we are living in this body, mind plays a big role. So that's why I chose today again to talk about mind a little bit more, so that we can understand this mind. Okay. We all know something about the nature of the conscious mind. Conscious mind. We think, we feel, and we act. And these are all done through the conscious mind, because we are conscious of our thoughts, we are conscious of our feelings, and we are conscious of our actions. And whatever we think, feel, and do, that means all our experiences, because these are our experiences, thinking, feeling, and doing. So all our experiences, they are stored in the subconscious mind. Okay, so the upper surface is a conscious mind. Upper layer of the mind is called conscious mind, and the deeper layer is called subconscious mind. We can remember certain things we did. Why we are able to remember? Because we did it or we felt it decades ago, but we still remember it because what we did remains embedded in the mind. So it stays in the storage house. Every thought, feeling, and action leaves an impression on the mind. Nothing is lost. And the sum total of all those impressions is what constitutes the character of an individual. Okay? So that means we created our character with actions, with the feelings, and with thoughts. So we are the result of what we have thought, felt, and done. So our accumulated tendencies determine and control our conscious thoughts, feelings, and actions. So this is the relationship between the subconscious and the conscious. So sum total of the subconscious affects our conscious. How we are thinking, how we are acting right now, dependent upon what we did in the past. How we react to the objective world. Anything other than the Atma and Paramatma is objective or objects. So how we react to the objective world is governed by our own individual character. And our character is again our subconscious mind. So it is the sum total of all our past reactions. And past could be last moment, past could be last week, last month, or it could be last life. Past does not go away. That is why individuals vary in their reactions to the experiences. So same circumstance, two people will react differently. So the reaction varies according to the character of the individual. But now there's another term we often use, free will. So what about free will then? If everything we do, the way we react depends upon our subconscious mind, there is the free will. Can we not choose the way we will react to given conditions and circumstances? Answer to that is yes, we can choose. But remember, this will is not absolutely free will. There's a relative and there's an absolute. So for most of us, this free will is not absolutely free will. It's a relatively free will. So the will by which I make choices behaves in accordance with my character. So the kind of a subconscious mind I have, I'll make that kind of choices. If my subconscious mind is predominantly tamasic, my free will use the tamasic choices. And if it's a sattvic, it will choose the sattvic choices. So choice we have. The reason I'm saying it's not absolutely free will because it's dependent upon the subconscious mind. That's why yogi gurus, they tell us to clean out this subconscious mind. So, and that subconscious mind is the sum total of all my past deeds, thoughts, and feelings. Remember that. And not only of this present life, the subconscious mind carries the record of many past lives. Therefore, we are what we have made ourselves. Okay? So we cannot blame it on somebody else. We have made ourselves and we continue making ourselves anew. So the subconscious mind carries the whole record of our past and present. Remember that. It defines the character and tendencies we are born with. And they in turn determine the way we react to the present conditions. So it is such an important part of our personality, subconscious mind. So the subconscious, that part of the mind below the level of the conscious or surface mind, if you want to use the ordinary term, surface mind and deeper mind, is a very influential factor in our present life. Okay? And most of the time, we don't even think about it. We are not even aware of that subconscious mind. See, like that baby Jyoti is holding, that baby is, he did not start this life a few months ago. Sure, this body started a few months ago, but the mind that baby has brought from several lifetimes. That subconscious mind I'm talking about. And the Atma, who that baby is, in reality, is eternal. There's no difference between the Atma there and Atma here. It's the same. So we all realize the power of the influence exerted by the subconscious mind. We all have felt it, whether we know these terms or not. Through experience, a certain growth takes place in the ideas held by the conscious mind. Because we hear something, we learn something, and then there's a growth. We develop a sense of good and evil, like a punya and papa. Certain new ideals and principles come into the conscious mind. We realize, consciously we realize that we must live according to those new ideals and principles. Don't hurt anybody. Don't lie. Don't cheat. Get up early in the morning. Do some seva. New ideals, principles. So we realize that we must live according to those new ideals and principles. We begin to know a better way of life. We read something and we think that, yeah, I can live a life like that. But, a big but, we find ourselves helpless to live in that better way. We recognize that we should not lie, but we still end up lying. We recognize that we should not smoke or drink or eat wrong food. We still do it. This is an experience every one of us has had. We know, but we cannot do. For example, a thief wants to reform himself. He does not wish to steal anymore. Then he goes to a place where he sees that it would be very easy to steal without being caught. He knows better, but he steals. It is the same way with any other bad habit. Don't we often make a strong resolve? I will exercise every day. I will meditate twice a day. I will pray. I will remember God every hour. But then we forget. We have become slaves to our own subconscious mind. Remember that. Subconscious mind, the deeper layers of our mind, we have become slaves to. Is there no way out of this? The so-called, let's look at it. The so-called free will is controlled by our character. So that the term free will is really a misnomer when we look at it practically. However, there is a certain freedom which is not of the will or of the mind or of the intellect, but it is a freedom of the spirit. Which resides within us. The essence of us, which says, constantly it keeps on saying, but do we listen to it? What does it say? I cannot will, yet I must will. That little voice inside us. Although our minds and character says, I cannot do it, the spirit says, you must do it. That is the freedom every individual possesses. And through that freedom of the spirit, each one of us may find salvation. Some of us will listen to it in this lifetime. Yeah, somebody is asking me, subconscious mind same as chip? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. We recognize that there is something greater and higher which we have to achieve. We recognize that. Here and there, we hear this voice. Because of our habits and tendencies are what? Sanskars. built up by the past actions or past feelings or past thoughts, we find it almost impossible. But not completely impossible. Remember that. If it were completely impossible, then life would not be worth living. Then we'll be just like a stone or a tree. It's not completely impossible. Because of that freedom of the spirit, of the soul, though we may fail many times, we continue to struggle. Like we continue to keep on making an effort. And this struggle is called life. And this is also called sadhana. Whether we know it or not, the real struggle is to overcome the subconscious mind. Yoga's chitvritti nirodha. That's what our work is here. Overcome the subconscious mind and to be free again. Because we are bound by this subconscious mind. This is like almost like a chain on us. Not just one chain, it's a crisscross of a very thick chain. And we don't even see who we are. It is useless to try to overcome the past because we don't know how big the past is. We don't know where it started. We would like to know when we started. Where did I get separate from my creator? We cannot find that. So it is useless to try to overcome the past and be good in the future. Because we often say, no, past I'm going to forget, and in the future I'll be good. This cannot work. Because however we may try, our tendencies remain. Those impressions, those sanskars, they remain there. They are so deeply embedded. The only way to erase all the past tendencies or the sanskars is by a complete transformation of the mind. And what happens then? In the words of Bible, we realize the kingdom of heaven, Bible says, which is within us. So in other words, we realize the kingdom of the self. And what is this true nature that we realize? It is perfection. Not relatively perfect. Because remember, relative perfection is imperfection. So it's not relatively perfect. Perfection, to be perfection, must be an absolute perfection, nothing less. And this perfection is to be attained as we empty ourselves of all the contents of the consciousness. Contents. Okay, it's like all those thoughts. Again, yoga's chitvritti nirodha. Empty that. The mind is like a lake of dirty water, lashed into waves. The reflection of the sun is that lake is not clear, because if it's dirty and if there are a lot of waves on it, cannot see the reflection. But if you make the water of the lake clear and calm, both, there's a perfect reflection of the sun. Perfect. The sun, the light of God, shines within each of us. Shines on the lake of the mind. But because of the imperfections of the mind, the light is imperfectly reflected. Imperfectly. And what are those imperfections? We know they are the sanskars that we have created, which in turn create thoughts in us, that lash the mind into waves. We want to sit and meditate, and the mind just goes onto the other side of the globe. We forget what we are here to do. So that the sun within us, that light within us, the light of God cannot be properly reflected because of the dirt and because of these movements. We are not even conscious of that light within. But the moment we are freed from our past tendencies, that moment we are purified, that moment we obtain tranquility of the mind. What is really meant by the phrase is making the mind tranquil, because we often use this phrase, we often hear this phrase, or we also use the phrase that freeing the mind of all its contents. How do we do that? Remember, Brahma or God, whichever word you want to use, doesn't matter, is said to be Sat. Sat means eternally existent. That Sat means Sat. Okay? It was, it is, it will be. That's eternally existent. Or we say He is. And He is also Chit, the consciousness itself. He is Ananda, happiness or love itself. So that's why the name of God we use, Satchitananda. Brahm is in some way reflected in our minds. We are always carrying Brahm within us every moment of our life. This existence is reflected in every one of us by the knowledge that I am. I exist. If you pay attention to it, we are all conscious of that existence. Even in the dark, even while we are sleeping, even when we are deep sleeping, we know that I exist, I am. None of us can imagine non-existence. We must exist even to try to think of ourselves as a non-existing. Okay, just ponder upon this a little. So we exist and we have knowledge of our existence, but this knowledge embraces only the contents of our mind right now. So that means these are just only the words for us, not of reality. Only when we free ourselves from the contents of our mind, we become aware of pure consciousness, which is God, the infinite consciousness. But how is this to be achieved? We know what to be achieved, but how do we do it? Because goal is clear. So the means to attain it should be clear and simple. The Yogi Guru says, it is done by uniting our minds with pure consciousness through the practice of constant meditation. That is the means. In this state, there is a continual flow of thought. See, constant meditation is like not a passive meditation, but active meditation. Sure, passive meditation we try to do 2 or 3 times a day, but ultimately it has to be constant meditation. So in this state, there's a continual flow of thought towards God, where nothing exists in the mind but He. This stage develops with practice. Our rishis, our yogis, our gurus, they have attained this. They live in this world, they walk on this earth. They come over here because they have compassion towards us. They want to show us how to live a life freely, perfectly, joyfully. So they are the examples for us. It's doable. Through ignorance, many teachers have taught that the mind must be made blank in meditation. They think that since the mind must be emptied of all objects of consciousness, we need to make it blank. Then they tell us that you will attain samadhi or the transcendental consciousness. But our Vedic seers, they say that consider that when you go into deep sleep, there's no content of consciousness in the mind. Mind is empty at that time. Mind is sleeping, but yet we do not attain samadhi. We go into the deep sleep every night, but we don't attain samadhi. So what is the nature of samadhi and what is the difference between it and the deep sleep or becoming unconscious? I often tell you that a fool goes to sleep and he still comes out a fool. But even if a fool goes, for some reason he go into samadhi, he would not come out as a fool. Samadhi will transform that person. He would come out as an illumined soul. That is the effect of samadhi. Deep sleep, we go into it every day. We empty our mind. If you try to make the mind a blank in meditation, what happens then? A fool, you went in or tried to go in, the same fool you come out. I wouldn't mind adding that even a worse fool, because a person who tries to make the mind blank becomes lazy, tamasic. Laziness is not meditation. Meditation requires great strenuous effort to intensely concentrate the mind upon God, pure consciousness. That's what we are doing. We are not idly just sitting. We are working on our mind when we meditate. Mind which wants to go everywhere, we are telling that mind, no, just go at the feet of the Guru, at the feet of the God. It does not matter what the conception or the ideal of the Godhead may be, but there must be a positive ideal upon which to concentrate. We have to raise our strong wave of thought to the exclusion of the rest. Exclude everything. Never try to make your mind blank, or you will remain a blank. But think of God, concentrate upon some conception of God, and you will become God. This is what yoga means by meditation. A constant flow of thought towards one ideal. Constant flow. In other words, we walk with God, constant flow. We sleep with God. We eat with God. We live with God. It's not only during sitting down meditation. We got to achieve this constantly. Mind is connected with God. If somebody says, how can that be done? Isn't our mind constantly connected with the worries and the stress of this world? We are eating stressfully, we walk stressfully, we talk stressfully, we sleep stressfully, we live stressfully. We have to transform that. So that's why I said we got to walk with God, we got to sleep with God, we got to eat with God, and we got to live with God. We must struggle to maintain that constant flow of mind towards God. Definitely we need to make some effort. And again, that's what sadhana is all about. Mind would like you to, or ego will like you to, not think of God, but the world. But you got to have a strong will. I want to think about God only. When the mind is constantly united with God and is established in the constant remembrance of God, we will achieve the state of meditation, which is called Dhruva Samriti, the constant recollectedness of God. World can forget. Everything else we can forget, but we don't want to take a chance that forgetfulness of God. To reach that state, we must acquire a certain mental purity by controlling the outgoing senses. And in yogic terminology, that's called pratyahara. Learn to control your senses. We have to practice bringing the senses back from the sense objects. Because where do the senses go? They just rush towards the sense objects. We got to learn to control them so that our attention may be fastened upon God. Otherwise, our attention is just going outwardly. This is the example I always give you, but I would like to repeat it over here so that you can use this for your own sadhana. Suppose you had a problem of cleaning a dirty ink bottle. Okay. Or it could be any kind of anything in there and you want to clean it. In old times, they used to have ink in the bottles, if you remember from our childhood. And that bottle is fastened to the table. You cannot pick it up and empty the ink out. What will you do? How do you clean that bottle? You have to clean the bottle, but it's attached to the table. But how do you clean it? You pour clear water in it. On top of that ink, in the bottle, you will pour clear water. What will happen after a time? Dirt will spill out. Whatever is in there, whether it's an ink or a mud or whatever you want to clean out, it will spill out. You keep pouring the clean water until all that dirt or the ink have been washed out. Keep pouring, keep pouring. And the bottle contains nothing but clean water after a while. In the same way, it is not possible to empty the mind. Because mind is attached. By throwing out the contents of the consciousness is not possible. By making it blank is not possible. What can we do to make it clean? Keep pouring the clean water, which is a thoughts of God. Keep pouring that in there. Keep pouring that in there until the mind spills all the dirt out. That's why we do the japa. That's why we do the kirtana. That's why we are in the company of a good people, because we keep on talking about God. That's why we read the scriptures. We are putting the clean water in there into our mind. And automatically the dirt flows out. That is the experience of everyone in the beginning. Because at first, you will find yourself that a lot of dirt is coming out. My thoughts are worse than even before. Horrible thoughts, distractions arise when we try to meditate. So that is a dirt which is spilling out. Do not get connected with the dirt. Do not try to analyze the dirt. Detach from the dirt. It's almost like if the room has been shut closed for some time, you want to clean that room. What will happen? Dust will fly. Because it was there, you couldn't see it, but it was there. But you got to make an effort to just remove all that dirt. So that is a universal experience. In the beginning, it seems as if greater passions arise because we are pouring the clear water into the mind. The dirt is flowing out. The whole subconscious mind is disturbed. It is like the layer of the mind at the bottom of a lake, which when stirred, muddles the whole lake for some time because it has been shaken. We all pass through that stage of muddy water or muddy thoughts, but we got to stick to the sadhana to let all that mud pour out. It quite often happens that when a person starts to lead a spiritual life, his or her character apparently grows worse instead of better. It happens sometimes. All the worst things come to the surface, and that is inevitable. Let them come up. Don't pay too much attention to it. You will get rid of them. With the practice, with perseverance, we have to go on pouring the clear water of God. Remember that. Distractions will come. Evil thoughts will arise. Wicked desires will also arise in the mind. Even the obstacles will come. Sometimes obstacles at the level of the mind, sometimes obstacles from the relationships also. They will come. But we got to be steadfast on our practice. Struggle to bring back the thought of God into the mind again and again. Practice constant recollection. In Bhagavad Gita, when Lord Krishna was telling Arjuna in 6th chapter, Atam Sanyam Yoga, how to do the meditation, when to do the meditation, why to do the meditation. And Arjun's question was, he was listening very carefully, but his question was, he says, you describe this yoga as a life of union with Brahma, but I do not see how this can be permanent. Why? Because he says this mind is so restless. In Arjun's words, he said, Chanchalam hi mana Krishna, Paramathi balvad dridam. So turbulent, so strong. Tasyaham nigraham banne vayur iva sudushkram. It's like a wind, cannot be controlled. That's how the mind is. And what we all know, what was Lord Krishna's reply to this question? He said, yes, the mind is restless. That is the nature of the mind, to be restless. Just like the nature of this body is to grow and decay and die ultimately. That's the nature of the body. And the nature of the mind, he says, yes, the mind is restless and difficult to subdue. But is important. Because he is definitely agreeing with Arjun that mind is like that, but it can be brought under control by constant practice. Asanshayam mahabaho mano durnigraha chalam. Abhyasen tu kaun tyaya vairagyen chatriyate. If some stain is very hard to remove, we use the proper kind of a cleaner. We rub it, wash it again and again, and it becomes clean. The same thing Lord Krishna is saying, Abhyasen tu kauntyaya vairagyen chatriyate. He says the mind is such restless and difficult to subdue, but it can be brought under control by constant practice, abhyas and vairagya. Through practice and struggle, controlling the mind becomes easy. It comes in our control. Some animals are very hard to control. Some children are very hard to control. Abhyas. But this is our own mind which has been accompanying us through countless lifetimes. It's our duty. Nobody else is going to do it for us. Abhyas and vairagya. And remember, we cannot achieve this in a moment, nor in a day, but we must keep the ideal high. We must aim high and shoot high. We may fail many times. It doesn't matter. Get up again and continue to struggle. Remember that story of the spider. Spider kept on climbing, kept on climbing, kept on climbing. That story is, every culture tells that story to their children. Do not give up. That is life. If there is no struggle in life, and if everything goes on smoothly, then either you are an illumined soul. If you don't have to make any effort, you sit and you can just meditate for hours and hours, days and days, you are an illumined soul then. Or you are an unawakened person. Just don't want to make any effort. But most of us are neither end of the path. Otherwise, we won't be listening to this, we won't be reading this, we won't be trying to do the sadhana. We are in between. We are neither that nor that. As long as we are on this path, we must struggle. We must do the sadhana. Life is nothing but sadhana. Sadhana is life. Keep in mind, sadhana, keep on doing the sadhana, you are sure to overcome. Have that kind of a confidence. Because there's no other way. This is the only place to go. But the sadhana we must do. Abhyas and vairagya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.